want to move on to this quickly, and this is a little clickbaity because this is like such a big topic of conversation, but it does need to be mentioned because this podcast has been like, hey, there's a clear gap between the SEC and the Big Ten in terms of depth of conference, but I think we were wrong in a sense. I just think we're underestimating the money being a factor in this now because you can't go to the local church and hand a kid 30 grand in cash anymore. That's what the SEC could do back in the day, and they could have a leg up on all these schools. Now you can just flat out open the pocketbook, open the checkbook, and pay players. And dude, Louisiana State and Alabama and Ole Miss, they are not pumping out grads that are starting companies in Chicago or San Fran or Boston or Philly or New York City. That's what Indiana and the Big Ten schools do. Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan. Like if you looked up biggest endowments, like obviously you have the Harvard and the Yales, but then you get the Cals and the Ohio State and the Michigan and the Texas and like the SEC school positioned best, and we're seeing it in the portal right now, is Texas. Texas is so well positioned in this era of college football. And, obviously right now they had a disappointing year in terms of where they wanted to go, but dude, they are infusing that building with talent. And when when this checkbooks just got openly allowed to be used, the Big Ten has the money. The SEC, the South doesn't have that type of money. They don't have guys. Mark Cuban just wrote a $15 million check for Indiana. And like he'll do that every year. Like he makes that on one dividend. He owns like that's nothing. Like that's literally nothing. So, you know, that's all we can. I just think the SEC just does not have the advantage. And then staff wise as well. Like if you're talking about who are the best coaches in college football, like Signetti, Lanning, Ryan Day, is there a
Whittingham.
Whittingham? I mean, if Campbell, like, does the SEC like if you go obviously you got Kirby, Sark, and Lane. But like, are you taking Heupel over Whittingham or Heupel over Lanning? Like, I'm not. Are you taking? I like Pete Golding, but I'm not taking Pete Golding over any of those guys. Like, I like Venables a lot, but um, maybe I would take Venables over some. But I'm just saying, like, there used to be a chasm between the two coaching staffs, like especially head coaches, like. But now there's no longer that chasm, and that does not exist. And now because the coaching chasm is smaller and the pocketbook is larger, you see where the Big Ten fits in this conversation. And I've been very lenient because we haven't seen it show up in the NFL draft yet. Right now, the SEC still puts out the most NFL draft talent as of last year. We'll see if that gap shrinks. What say you, Duska?
I mean, I think you're spot on. I don't want to just write off SEC programs. I think they're going to find a way for as long as they're in national relevance. But I think the way the sport is trending, it gives an advantage to the Big Ten, just because, like you said, I mean, if you're if you want to be a tech billionaire, you're not going to go to Ole Miss. And
No.
Ole Miss, I'm sure, is a great institution with great teachers, and you have a really good time in Oxford, but you're going to go to Michigan. You're not going to go to Ole Miss. And then that tech billionaire who lives in Silicon Valley, he's going to give money to his former school, and they're going to invest it into football and be able to pay top tier talent. They're going to be able to pay Bryce Underwood $8 million. And I think that's significant because that's the direction the sport's heading. And until there's regulation on the amount that players can make, that's how it's going to be. And all of these schools are going to have that advantage. And it's tough for the SEC because even I remember seeing last summer that Alabama was having trouble with NIL money, and their athletic director had to tweet asking for just local and normal fans to donate to the program so they could pay for their NIL budget. And if that's the direction that they're heading, and if they're having fiscal issues, then that's a big part of the game now. And no matter how good Kalen DeBoer can be, and how much he can develop the talent he has there. As soon as that talent knows that they can go make money, more money going somewhere else, they're going to do it. And you see that, and that's been happening the last few years. It's not like this new groundbreaking thing. And I think it's it might be a little exaggerated in the sense now, just because if Indiana wins the national championship, yes, that's three. That's the last three for the Big Ten, but and I think it'll swing back towards the SEC because that's just naturally how it's going to happen. But I think there's potential that some of the big programs that we traditionally know, like maybe in Alabama, who doesn't have Nick Saban anymore, isn't going to be considered in the same light that they have been, and they might fall back a little bit, like you've seen Florida do. And like you said, the more prominent teams that are going to be more well positioned for this NIL era are the Texases of the world, and UGA is in a good position, I think, because UGA is a really good academic school, and I think they're always going to be well funded.
They
But
also have they have
they're
Atlanta, which is another big. That's a
100%,
big city. That's one of the only South like hubs of
yeah.
finance
And
tech.
that's important too. I don't think we mentioned that, but like Texas being in Austin, that's huge because
Hmm.
Austin is a city on the rise. And you can't really say the same about some of the like Oxford, Mississippi, I heard is a beautiful town, but it's not like it's going to be a hub of recent college grads. And if you go to Ole Miss and you're from New Jersey, like you're not going to stay in Oxford. You're probably going to
Hmm.
go back home. But people are moving to Austin actively, and people are actively moving to Atlanta. So those cities are going to be more attractive. And if a school is close to that city, that is significant. And
Yeah.
that's why I think those two schools in particular, I might be missing one, but Austin with the University of Texas and Georgia being close enough to Atlanta, I think also with the pedigree for academics that Georgia has, I think that they're going to be a little more well positioned with alumni. And I think they're going to be the best positioned as long as the sport continues in the direction that it's headed. And that's all we can talk about. Even if we don't like that that's the case, it just is what it is. And
Yeah.
I think we're going to see this trend, maybe not as exaggerated and with the Big Ten dominating the national championship in particular, but
Hmm.
I think we're going to see a swing where, yeah, there might be more talent coming out of the Big Ten to the NFL than there is in the SEC. And it's going to balance out a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm not saying that like the Big Ten is like just a superior conference. I just think like there is no gap anymore.
Yeah.
I don't
I also do think top to bottom, the SEC is still stronger. Oh, also Vanderbilt. I didn't mention that. They're in Nashville.
Yeah, Vandy's.
There's,
You
yeah,
forget they're an SEC school. They're doing
yeah,
really well in basketball right
100%.
now as well.
Vandy. Vandy's a good example as well, but, and I might be missing another one that's not
Mhm.
popping off the top of my head, but I think you're going to see a balancing. But I still think top to bottom, the SEC has more talent than the Big Ten. And some of those other Big Ten schools are going to struggle for a long time. But schools at the
But
top and
even
schools that are going to
Iowa went 9 wins this year. Like they're same old Iowa, which is really
100%.
good. Like really
And I
good.
think you're going to
And
see UCLA and USC. There's going to be a resurgence at
well,
some
dude,
point. They kind of
USC,
just
they just had the
they
number
got
one
to get
recruiting
structured.
class. Number one
Yeah,
recruiting class. Dude, they've got tons of money in Southern California. Washington is in Seattle. Seattle is a tech hub. That's where Amazon's located. Like, dude, they've got money out in Seattle. And then Oregon, like
they paid Damon Williams $4 million.
yeah, like so
Uh,
they are not like so when you just take a look at like the top 8 programs and you're like, all right, like who's better positioned? Like the city of Knoxville or Seattle for like the pay for play era? And it's like, Seattle. So okay,
we've
let's
been to
move
Knoxville.
not the
It's a
economic.
nice town, but it's not the same as Seattle.
I wonder how many of their alumni like that graduate from Knoxville end up working in Knoxville. Probably not that many.
Definitely not Colin Foley.
No, not fully. Okay.